Welcome to the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast, where we explore holistic approaches to health, wellness, and personal growth. My name is Sophia Sol, the co-creator of Sacred You. On today's show, we are joined by Melanie, a degree-qualified nutritionist with a deep passion for children's and families' health. Melanie's expertise lies in empowering the body's innate ability to heal through holistic dietary and lifestyle choices, a mission close to her heart and ours as well. May you enjoy today's episode. If you would like to help Sacred You reach more people and create a ripple of positive change, please hit that subscribe button. Give us a like or check us out at www.sacredyou, that's the letter U, .love for more valuable resources. Have a beautiful day and let's get started on today's conversation. Welcome to today's episode, and with me we have the beautiful Melanie, who's coming to talk to us about something that is really dear to my heart, and that is overcoming stress. So Melanie, thank you so much for joining us, and I know we're going to go into a lot more and all about nutrition, but like I said, being on a computer, I know I'm not the only one living in this crazy world, but I live on a computer a lot. I do experience a lot of stress. So tell us about you, Melanie. How did you get into this whole area of nutrition and helping others with stress?
Yeah, sure. I was always interested in nutrition, but it wasn't until my second baby was born. He had really quite severe reflux and eczema. He was medicated for 5 weeks, but we just had a horrendous time with him despite that. And at 8 months, someone mentioned that it might be food intolerances that was driving it. And that just changed my world. We went on an elimination diet. I was breastfeeding, so I changed my diet, I changed his diet, and it went away. I didn't get a lot of support from modern medicine. They didn't really have anything to offer me, so I had to go down that holistic approach. And yeah, everything was totally blown apart for me because I followed all of the guidelines that you were given about what you should be feeding your children, from rice cereal, from First Foods and things like that. So I had to read labels and I had to really relearn about food. And then when he got a bit older, I thought, you know what, I know so much already. I want to do this as a job. And so I went and did my degree with Endeavour College of Natural Health. I wanted to go with the Natural Therapies College because they are a little bit more holistic. And yeah, towards the end of the degree, I decided I really wanted to focus on children's health because I wanted to help the mums that were like me. And through that, I'm now helping a lot of women themselves, and I'm dealing a lot with stress. And I'm finding stress is actually the backbone and the really the big driver of most things. And most people think, oh, well, what have children got to be stressed about? Our kids are stressed out of their brains. They are so incredibly stressed, and that's where you see a lot of the behaviours. And so you've got stressed mums as well. So sometimes we have to help mum first and tackle her stress so that she can bring in the changes that are needed for the child. Sometimes we help the child first. That reduces some of the stress so that mum can then help herself. So it can be challenging, but I do work with kids and mums and adults as well, any adult.
And thank you. And can I just take a moment just to honour you? Really honour you for the work that you do. We live in a chaotic world. We all know that everyone is suffering or experiencing some type of stress. And as you say, even children. Right, because of the world that we live in. Yet the majority of people, I'm not saying everyone, because there are a lot of people out there yourself, but the majority of people don't even think about the food that we're feeding our bodies, the nutrition that we're feeding our bodies. Our bodies have to cope with everything that's going on in this world, but yet we don't give it the right nutrition, which adds to it. So really just thank you. Really thank you for being who you are and bringing your experience and the knowledge that you've learned to the world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor. I love what I do.
And it's good. And it shows it. It shows in your radiant skin, your radiant face, your smile. It shows that you love what you do. And it shows that you're a living example of what you help others with. And it's not like you just come here and you go and see a doctor and you take this pill, even though I'm not. All right. So you are a living example. So thank you. And can you share other ways, like how does nutrition really impact our body's response to stress? What does it actually do?
Okay, I'm so happy to talk about this because there's a lot of talk about stress and mindfulness and meditation and yoga, but no one really talks about nutrition. And so there are really things that we can really do to support and nourish our nervous system through food. And there are actually some habits we might be doing that can actually be exacerbating stress for us. So that's why I really like talking about food. So I'll just break it down a little bit about what actually happens in the body when we get stressed. And when we think about stress, I want everyone to keep in mind that you can trigger a stress response with thought alone. So if you think about that argument that you had, you think about that phone call you've got to make, you get a physiological response in the body. The brain does not know the difference between real and imagined. The body also perceives every stress, whether it is traffic or a deadline, as life-threatening. So think about our caveman days, it's life or death. And people often hear people talk about being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Our body responds in exactly the same way. It releases stress hormones, so cortisol and adrenaline, to get ready to fight or flee. So it floods the body with glucose, which is energy for muscle, so that you can run away or fight. And then it will shut down anything that's not deemed as necessary in that life-threatening situation. So your digestion's not that important in that moment in time. Your fertility is not that important. Lots of things are not that important in that moment in time. And you become hypervigilant around your surroundings because you're in this environment where it's literally life or death. But unfortunately, what's happening is it's happening in the classroom, it's happening in our workplace, where our body is literally thinking it's life or death, and it's getting ready to do what it needs to do. And it means that all the things that we need to do during the day fall by the wayside because they're not considered important. And unfortunately, back in those days, we may have experienced a stressful event 1 or 2 times a day. We are experiencing stress hundreds of times a day. And some people never get back to that baseline, that fight or flight kicks in. You should come back to homeostasis and feel relaxed. Some of us never get back there because we're treating it with thought alone. That requires a huge amount of response from the body. And if you don't have the nutrients to support that, your body can't do it very well. The reason nutrition is really important is we have what we call our calming nutrients. So things like calcium and magnesium that calm us down. If we don't have enough of those nutrients, we can't calm our bodies down. You can't make something out of nothing. Everything in our body is a chemical reaction, and we need these nutrients for those chemical reactions to happen. So that's why you might start getting signs of certain deficiencies, because you're utilizing those nutrients so much. Your body's really trying to put the brakes on to calm you down, and you're revving that engine all day long. That's where it's really important. The other thing is we live in a society where we really just go and we think we can just function on nothing. And I see it a lot in mums especially, but just generally busy people who are living off coffee, and that's not fueling their body, and it's actually making the stress response worse. So nourishing your body with the nutrients that it needs, but also not skipping meals, having too much caffeine, exercising too hard. These also induce a stress response in the body. But we're just so used to go all the time, we don't even know what it feels like to be calm anymore.
So true. I live in the world and I meditate and do all that, which is good. But it's, as you said, our bodies are such in the flight or fight mode on a constant basis, no matter what it is. Even with exercise, people say, oh, to relieve stress, you go out and exercise. But exercise is actually stressful.
It can be. I've started replacing the word exercise with movement now. So I'm encouraging people to move their body rather than exercise, because a lot of people do think exercise means going running 5Ks or doing a high intensity exercise. And I have to say, you talk about being stressed all day long. Some people, and I see it a lot in kids, they're actually stressed all night long too. They don't even get that restful sleep. So they're never resting. If you're running your engine 24/7, it's going to run out of steam pretty quickly.
If you don't give it the right fuel.
Yeah.
Good quality fuel. I'd love to go into a little bit more, Melanie, because you did mention cortisol. And I've been seeing cortisol around a lot lately. People are talking that you've got too much cortisol or not enough cortisol and things like that. So tell us about cortisol and how does that affect us, having too much cortisol or not enough? Can you have low cortisol but yet be stressed?
Yes, yeah. We call it like HPA axis dysfunction. So that's just the adrenal glands. They talk to each other. It's the brain, and the adrenal glands are the stress glands above the kidneys, and they produce all the hormones and things like that. So cortisol is more of a long-term stress hormone. So adrenaline is normally that really, if you really get hit by a car and your body will jolt into action, and the adrenaline can sometimes calm down, but the cortisol is that long-term stress. And again, like when cortisol's in the body, it's telling the brain, well, this isn't important right now. It's prioritized above everything else because your body is trying to keep you alive. So it's saying, again, your digestion's not important. So when you've got high cortisol, you're not going to be secreting much stomach acid, which means you're not going to digest your food very well. Maybe you don't have an appetite. A lot of kids don't have an appetite. That's why it's hard to get them to eat. So it downregulates that. It is prioritized over making our progesterone. So that's our calming hormone as part of our menstrual cycle. That's like an anti-anxiety. So the body has the choice to take our nutrients, and it's go, do we make cortisol or do we make progesterone? It's going to prioritize making cortisol. So it is just prioritized over everything, or everything else just takes a back seat and things start to slow down. So you can imagine if you're running cortisol 24/7, a lot of these other processes in the body are slowing down and they're not getting enough of what they need to function adequately. Yeah, we weren't designed to live like this.
No, I totally agree with you there. We definitely weren't designed to live on pure cortisol.
And sorry, the other part of your question. So cortisol is a good thing, and we can get low cortisol. So what tends to happen is there's 3 stages of stress. So the first, we call it the alarm phase. So that's where a stressor has come about and we respond. The alarm phase, and we should come back to homeostasis. When we stay in that alarm phase for too long, it becomes the resistance phase, and the body's really just working really hard trying to maintain homeostasis, but his cortisol's muddling everything up, and we start to get tired. And then you get to that exhaustion phase where you start to get lower cortisol. The body just can't keep up. You can have disrupted cortisol patterns so what ideally should be happening is cortisol should raise in the morning. That's what helps you wake up and get out of bed in the morning. And it will raise throughout the day, and then it will taper down at the end of the day so that you can go to sleep. We have people who are chronically stressed who have low cortisol, but we have they're called wired and tired. So they're tired all day. So when they should have cortisol keeping them going, their cortisol's a little bit late. Then they get to bedtime and ping, they can't sleep. So they're tired all day and then wired all night because their cortisol patterns are backwards.
And I guess that happens to a lot of mums.
Yes. Especially waking up with babies, and that can really disrupt things. But you can't change what you don't acknowledge, or you're not even aware of happening. Once you become aware of these things in your body, you get so much more control over what you can do about them. The fact that people don't know about it, or they just don't realize that so many people don't realize that they're stressed. And I can tell you how many conversations I've had with people saying, I'm not really stressed, I'm not really anxious. And then I get a phone call or an email saying, actually, I've had time to ponder on it and think about it. I think I am actually a little bit anxious, because it's so normalized in our society. I also do hair mineral tissue analysis in my clinic, testing. We take a sample, and I always say to people, don't tell me whether you're stressed or tired or anxious. Give me a piece of your hair, I'll get it sampled, and I can tell based on what the body's doing with your minerals, with your calcium, your magnesium, your sodium and potassium. I can tell what the body's doing and what it's trying to do and what state you're in. I can tell you whether you're in fight or flight. I can tell you whether you're heading into that absorption phase. And I've seen children as young as 6 getting into that kind of like adrenal fatigue is an old word. It's not really a proper medical term or scientific term that we'd use, but lots of people understand that adrenal fatigue. Kids are heading to that point at age 6 because anxiety is just so normalized that anxiety is that engine running constantly.
So children grow up thinking that it's normal and stuff, where it's actually not. As you said, being calm and peaceful is actually normal. And I'd love to go in, if it's okay, Melanie. We're talking about stress and our body's ability to handle it. But how can we support our body? What foods? You've mentioned calcium and magnesium. So what are nutrients, or what specific foods can we have to support our body's ability?
Yeah, so one of the most important things that you can do for yourself is maintain good blood glucose regulation. That's a bit of a hot topic at the moment, but basically what that means is any food that's not kind of meat, so meat is very protein based. You have your vegetarian proteins, but they have carbohydrate. But pretty much every plant food is carbohydrate that eventually breaks down to some glucose, that's the energy that the body uses. Now, we know that if we drink a can of soft drink, that glucose goes quickly into the bloodstream compared to if we have an apple that's bound up with fiber and it's a little bit, so we know about glycemic index and things like that. So basically what we want to do is make sure that we're not flooding the body with too much glucose all at once, because that causes a stress response. And I have a little illustration to show my point. So this green area is where you want to be giving your body some energy, some glucose to deal with the day, but you don't want to do it, you don't want to just dump it into the body. So the example that I use is if you have a garden and you take a big bucket of water and you just dump that water on a plant, the plant's not going to be very happy. What they would probably rather prefer is if you have a drip system that's just going to slowly drip the water all day long into. So what we want to do is eat lots of proteins and fats, as well as your carbohydrates. We don't want to go without carbs, just so that it's going nice and slowly. And what's happening is a lot of people are turning, because they're busy, they're turning to a lot of carbohydrate foods, cereals, breads, pastas, things like that. They're having toast for breakfast that's not going to sustain their energy for very long. And what happens is the blood sugar levels go up a bit too high. And as soon as they go above this green zone, the body will actually release cortisol. So it's actually creating a stress response in the body saying, this isn't good, because the body always wants balance. So the body's saying, this isn't good, this is too high. It releases cortisol. It tells the body, you need to release insulin, because insulin brings it back down. But what happens when you're flustered or you're in an emergency situation? You maybe overreact. And this is what happens. The body goes, alarm bells, this is dangerous. Get this blood sugar down, but it brings it down too quickly. And so then you end up here. And guess what happens when you get there? Alarm bells go off. Cortisol starts ringing. This is dangerous. This is too low. And if you experience anxiety, or your child experiences anxiety, it can feel the same as when you're here. So you know when people get hangry?
Yes.
They're like, I've got 15 minutes to feed me or else I'm hangry. That's because they're cycling too quickly. But it can feel like anxiety. So if you're doing this all day long and you're already anxious, you're making yourself more anxious. You can get heart palpitations. You might get lightheaded, dizzy, headaches, very emotional. I always joke, one of my children used to get hangry, one used to get emotional. He would just get overly upset about certain things when he was little. It wouldn't normally bother him. And I'd say, you're hungry. No, I'm not. We'd feed him, and 5 minutes later, the problem didn't seem so big anymore, because he had these alarm bells going off in the body. And obviously you can't hear them or see them. And if you're not in tune to it, you don't know that it's there. My kids now know. Actually, I think I need something to eat, Mum. I'm feeling a little bit hungry. So keeping those levels nice and balanced is really important. So proteins and fat in the diet. We tend to be carnivores, so rely heavily on carbohydrates, which I don't want to poo-poo carbohydrates because they're really important too, but not at the expense of having fat and protein in the diet. So having that piece of toast with some eggs and mushrooms and some spinach or something like that is going to be a better start to your day to keep you stable throughout the day. So that's one way that food can adversely affect your blood glucose. And in return, if you eat with the proteins and the fat, how you can actually support yourself. Another thing that people do is fasting. Love fasting, love the idea of fasting, but you've got to keep in mind that we're basing that on when we were cavemen, when we were getting stressed maybe once or twice a day. We're not comparing apples with apples. We're in a highly stressed environment trying to go without food. When the alarm bells are going off, when we're releasing cortisol, the body just wants glucose. It only wants sugar. It's not going to be able to turn to those fat stores for fuel. That's why some people just, they get such brain fog. They can't think at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They need a snack. They get tired. The body is just too stressed to function well. So some people will get up and they might have their black coffee and head off to that really important meeting because they don't have time to have breakfast. And if you're feeling nervous about that important meeting or presentation and you don't have any food in your stomach, and it can perpetuate things. So what I encourage people is you can still fast, because fasting is very good for your hormones, but maybe breakfast is not the time to fast. Maybe you fast in the afternoon, have something good to start your day, because most of us get out the door, rush, go in the morning, and that's when we need the most. So I'm not saying this works for everybody. It's just that I'm trying to explain that everything that you see online is not going to be applicable to everyone and everyone's situation. So fasting can be good, but fasting actually can be harmful. Like, I see a lot of women who really try to do the right thing. They want to be a great mom. They want to do a great job at their job. They want to keep fit. They want to be healthy. And so they go low carb and they fast in the mornings and they do high intensity exercise. And what they don't realize they're doing is actually putting more stress on the body, because we're just designed to think that we just need to push through. And so just doing little things like having some breakfast before your coffee, having a breakfast before that big meeting. Some days you might be okay to fast in the morning when you've got a nice relaxed morning. But other times maybe you want to consider having some breakfast so that you've got some fuel. And it's quite amazing what can happen is when you're feeling very jittery, when you haven't had enough to eat, if you get a good protein and fat into you, it can just calm you right down. Really does. It can even stop. Some people have had a reduction in panic attacks just by stabilizing their blood glucose levels. So they're the couple of things that you can do that you might be doing that might be hindering you in your stress response, and some things that you can do as a replacement. But that's probably a whole topic. I could probably do an hour talk just on blood glucose regulation and what to eat. But there's lots of information online about blood glucose regulation, but just the pinging up and down, it's creating more stress.
Yes, when it definitely would be. Yes, I can see how that would happen, because our bodies aren't designed to constantly go on stress.
Yeah.
It needs that.
Nobody makes good decisions when they're hungry. Nobody, you lose your creativity and everything because you're stressed. The body is just trying to function in this logical state. Yeah, and a lot of women just under eating in general.
Totally. And under eating, but also not eating healthy. Because of the lifestyle that a lot of people live in today's world. It's all, not all, but a high proportion is pre-packaged or takeaway because it's quick.
Yeah. And don't even get me started on the marketing that's confusing everybody. These companies that make these products have marketing teams that design we know we want to eat healthy because the way our labeling has changed. Back in the 80s and 90s, everything was fluoro colors. If you notice now, everything's more like neutral tones. We call that greenwashing. They're trying to make everything seem more wholesome, more natural, because they know that's what we want. And they have these marketers design, they put things on the packaging to confuse us. High in protein, low in sugar. They know that we're looking at the ingredients label, and we know that the first thing on that ingredients label is what is the majority ingredient in that product. So you know what they do? They put sugar in 3 different ways so that sugar is not the first one on the list. They split it into different items to make it look like there's, and we're busy. I picked up something the other day and didn't realize till I got home that it was crumbed, and it had all of these, it had some sugar in the crumbing, it had all these flavorings. I didn't realize. I just quickly picked it up. I saw that it was salmon, it had some seasoning on it, and it was on sale. I grabbed it. We don't have a lot of time in the supermarket sometimes as well. So there's a whole host of things working against us when it comes to food.
Can you tell us, let's go into something that just about everyone loves, and is it really so bad for us? And that's the wonderful thing called a coffee or caffeine. Is coffee good for us and in helping us in any way?
So I will never take coffee away from people. I do love a coffee myself, but it's about being smart about the way you do it. If you go online and look at scientific research, all you can find is the benefits of coffee, and there are great benefits to it. What's not really beneficial, though, is having 9 coffees a day, not eating food.
Yeah.
What's not beneficial is having coffee first thing in the morning on an empty stomach and raising cortisol levels. So the first thing I say to people that if someone's drinking 9 coffees a day, and I try and tell them stop drinking coffee, that's not going to happen. You start just winding it back. You start reducing the amount that you're having, the quantity in each cup, for example, really questioning, do I need it? Let's start eating some food, see whether the food gives you energy. It's quite surprising. We think we know what we need to do, but in our own lives, sometimes we just can't see the forest for the trees. And so some women, I literally have to say, how about we start eating food before 2:00 in the afternoon? And they come back within 3 days. I'm feeling so much better already. And it seems obvious, but we're so caught up in our busy lives and we don't prioritize ourselves. no, I won't say don't drink coffee, but I'll say be more intentional about the way you drink it. Don't drink coffee in place of food. And when you get up in the morning, I would really encourage you to have a little bit of food in your stomach first before you have the coffee, because it can create a little bit of a cortisol, not a huge one, but it can raise your cortisol levels a little bit. And you just want the energy from the food to be able to support you through that.
Absolutely. And I said, you don't want to stop drinking coffee.
Yeah, I had a coffee this morning, love it, but I had it after my breakfast, and I'm not going to be having another coffee. I'm not going to skip lunch and have another 3 coffees. I'm going to have my lunch, and I won't need one. Generally, I only have one a day. Sometimes I might have a second one, but it's just, we also just get really caught in the habit. I just really enjoy a coffee, but just being mindful about it. Do I need the caffeine at this point? Or maybe I could have a decaf this time. Or if I'm going out to coffee with friends, do I need this second coffee? Could I have something different instead? You can still enjoy the beverage without needing the caffeine. And same thing about energy drinks as well, because some people don't drink coffee, they might have energy drinks or even soft drinks that have caffeine in them. It's just being mindful about how much you're having, and that you're not relying on that for your energy instead of food.
Thank you. And tell us about gut health. First of all, how does coffee affect our gut health? And how our gut is, because we hear a lot about that, how healthy your gut is, and how does that connect to our emotional well-being and stress?
Oh, it hugely. So it's a bit of a two-way street. So there's two-way communication between the gut and the brain. It's called the gut-brain axis. So there's nerves but there's more communication going from the gut to the brain than there is from the brain to the gut. So that means what we're eating and going into our body, that's communicating to the brain about the environment in the gut and what we're having. So more information is coming from the gut to let the brain know what's going on than the other way around. About twice as much information goes from the gut to the brain, and then some goes from the brain to the gut. Obviously, the brain's telling the gut what to do. So keeping that in mind. So what we eat, it's not just about calories and nutrients, it's actually information to the brain about the environment. The bacteria that we have in our gut microbiome plays a huge role in our mood, because they play a larger part in our neurotransmitter production. And they have actually taken fecal transplants from one person with depression and transplanted into somebody without depression, and that person has developed depressive symptoms. So your gut microbiome plays a huge role, so that in how you feel, your mood, your motivation, how happy you feel. Now, the more serotonin you have, maybe the little bit more resilience to stress you might be, because you've already been happy. But if you're already a little bit low, your resilience to stress may be lower. On the flip side, when we're stressed, that information from the brain going to the gut, as I said before, about shut down stomach acid production. We don't need to digest our food right now. We need blood and resources to go to our muscles to fight. So there's a huge correlation, and the health of your gut impacts so much. And people have probably heard the saying, the gut's the second brain, because it provides so much information. So yeah, you don't want to drink too much coffee. That's not going to be great for the intestinal cells either. But as I said, just 1 cup a day or 1 or 2 cups isn't too much of a problem.
Especially for soft drinks or decaf.
Yeah, even decaf has a little bit. It's just about questioning things. Question yourself on a regular basis. Do I actually need that second coffee, or is it just habit?
Yes.
Sometimes I find myself reaching for a coffee and I actually say, no, I actually don't need one. I just feel like one. I feel like drinking a coffee. I don't necessarily want that extra caffeine. And I've actually stopped myself from ordering a second coffee before actually going, I'm actually feeling a little bit, I'm having some slight heart palpitations. Actually, probably need some food instead, and I'll have some food. Just questioning. You don't need to be the same thing. We're just such creatures of habit. And I just always encourage people to question how you're feeling on a particular day. Do I need this? Do I need listening to your body?
Melanie, tell us about gut health. How can we actually overcome it and nourish our gut? Yeah.
Okay, first and foremost, if you want a healthy microbiome, you've got to feed it. So whatever is growing in your gut is based on what you're feeding. If you're eating a lot of sugar, the bugs that love sugar will flourish and thrive. The bacteria, the healthy bacteria in our gut that we want to help us feel good, digest our food, all the great things that it does, loves fiber and plants. The general rule of thumb I give to my clients is diversity, because they don't like to eat the same thing every day. So you don't want to eat, you might be eating a huge amount of vegetables, but if you're eating the same 3 vegetables, they don't really like the same thing. They like diversity. You want different fibers and different phytonutrients and phytochemicals and other nutrients. So variety is key. So 30 different plant foods per week is a really good gauge. And it's much more achievable than people probably think, because you eat, if you're eating 3 meals a day, that's 21 meals a week, where you can just change it up a little bit every day, what you're having. A really good hack, though, is if you're eating red apples or green apples, they count as 2 different plant foods. So you can throw it in the mix that if you have red apples every week, maybe every now and then you'll throw in a green apple. Maybe you'll have a purple carrot instead of an orange carrot. Little things like that, throwing in some variety, and is really good for your gut health.
I can just see, I'm just picturing in my mind a smorgasbord and all the microbes, all the bacteria picking from this smorgasbord of food.
It's just not as complicated as people think, but I think because everyone is a little bit different and we're coming from everyone's got generally some sort of a health issue, whether it's they have a little bit of an issue with their hormones or anxiety. So you do need to tailor it to that. That's where it gets tricky. But on a base level, if you're eating variety, there's a good chance you're getting every single nutrient that you need without having to count it and measure it in an app or anything like that. Just eat variety. Don't eat the same thing every day.
Thank you. That's so true. Now, can I just ask something that I know is for a lot of women, an issue for a lot of women and men too, but especially women and mums, is this emotional eating. And because when we're with emotional eating, it's usually, I just need food. I want the quick food. Usually a lot of sugar food, sweet stuff. So why is there a thing as emotional eating? And what can we do about it? What foods are the best at that time?
With emotional eating, it's a very loaded question, a loaded topic. But basically, there could be a lot of reasons why we emotionally eat. But a lot of packaged foods are engineered. They have people, that is their job, to find what's called the bliss point. They actually test how much sugar they can put in something before it becomes unpalatable. And they go just inside that. They want to get as much sugar in that as they can to get that bliss point that's going to set dopamine off in your brain. Dopamine makes you feel good. Put sugar and fat together, perfect. That's really going to fire up the brain and make you feel good. So if you're not making enough neurotransmitters, you're going to be more susceptible to want to turn to those foods. And there's other things that can do that for us too. Scrolling on our phone, gambling, shopping. We all have our little things and our comforts that we do. The other thing often happens is it's the dysregulated blood glucose levels. If you get to the point where you're starving, you're not going to go and make yourself a meal. You're going to go and grab whatever you can quickly eat, because you're fighting against your biochemistry. You're fighting against these alarm bells here. So you're making it really difficult for yourself. So when it comes to, let's say you've had a really shit week and you want a comfort food, that's very different from emotionally eating every day. But the main thing I would say around food, and especially if it's like a less frequent thing, is it's not so much the food that you're having, but the environment within what you're having it. So example would be, you've had a terrible week, you go to the freezer, you grab a pot of ice cream, you put a blanket over you, sit there watching Netflix, feeling sorry for yourself. That is entirely different to then send your kids, hey guys, let's walk down to the corner store and go get an ice cream. And you enjoy that ice cream and you're having a moment with your children, and it's more about community. Like, those are two totally different things. The same thing as just ordering pizza and sitting there and scoffing pizza down, as opposed to let's go out with friends and enjoy some pizza and enjoying it. And the guilt that comes from that emotional eating afterwards, like if you've had the ice cream, enjoy it. That has a huge impact on your mood, the way your body processes. It's your mindset is everything. So I would say, if you're finding yourself withdrawing and just eating food for comfort, just start with one thing. Start with a good breakfast, see how that changes your life, and then move on from there. But if you find yourself just really wanting an ice cream, see whether you can do it with joy and with community, because that will make a really big difference.
So it's not what you eat, but it's really how you eat it.
Yeah, like eating alone versus eating with your family or your friends, like they've done studies on your health and it positively impacts. There was no regard for what the food was. It was simply about whether you ate alone or with other people, and it has such a huge impact.
Absolutely. And I can just imagine a life, someone's life, when we're really mindful of what we're eating. And it's not, you're not missing out. You don't say, no, I can't have that ice cream or that
Yeah.
or whatever, but it's, you do it because you want to. You do it with joy, not with guilt. So,
yeah, but the main thing being is if you find yourself really turning into, and you're like, why did I do that? And it's mindless. I would go, look at the meal prior. If you're getting to 3 o'clock and you're hoeing down on a chocolate and you're like, before you even know you've eaten, and you just go, what happened? And then look, did you have enough for lunch? Maybe you didn't eat quite enough for your lunch, because when you tend to emotionally eat less and snack less when your body's feeling full and nourished and you're not in that blood glucose slump.
Thank you. So tell us, Melanie, let's get into like parents and children. How can parents really implement stress reducing diets or strategies for their families?
So the main thing would be, again, it all comes down to that blood glucose regulation. So hungry kids are more likely to eat what you put in front of them. But like hangry kids, like that's different. That's a different beast altogether. Again, starting with, if you can, breakfast. For some people, breakfast is really challenging. So maybe it's whatever you start with after school, starting with a really nourishing snack that has protein and fats. I sometimes say to people, if eating dinner, your dinner meal at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 3:30 works for your family, and then you have a light supper at 7 p.m., do it. There's no rule around what time you have to eat. It's more about making sure you're eating the set meals. That makes sense. Rather than snacking 6 times a day. Get a good meal in if that works for you guys. So many people are like, it's so stressful to sit down and eat dinner at 7. My kids are starving when they get home from school. Then when they're starving, that's the best time to feed them the most nourishing foods, because they're more likely to eat. But yeah, including proteins and fats and not just going for the carbs. So making sure, look, some kids can be funny about meat, so you just need to get a little bit creative with how you can do that. Or there is protein in plant-based foods like legumes and chickpeas and things like that. But talking about it, my 15-year-old decided that he loves tomato now. At 15, he's been having it. I think at 10, he decided he loved avocado. We just kept offering it and offering it. Having small conversations around it without any pressure is the main thing. While we're eating those foods, he's 15, he's getting interested in becoming a man. So you need to, he doesn't love meat. You need your protein. If you don't want meat, we can give you some other protein options, but you just need to be including enough protein for your muscles to grow. And it's starting to hit.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, Melanie, I'd love to have you back, but before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share? Like I know there's so many questions that I would love to ask you another time, but is there anything that you would like to share that will really help the mums out there for them to cope with their own stress and the stress in their families?
Yeah, so I guess determining, do you need to help yourself first? I know a lot of people say help yourself first, and it's not always doable. It isn't. Sometimes you need to, I call it like, who's the squeaky wheel in your family? Who's the child that needs the most help and attention? Are they having the most meltdowns? Maybe that's where you start, because once your children are more calm and content, there's a little bit more room for you. So I'm a bit of a nonconformist, and I don't like being told you have to do something a certain way if there's other ways that can be done. So you just have to find a way that it works for your family. Like I remember people used to say, oh, get up before your children so you can have that nice calm start to your morning. I got up early, they woke up earlier. It didn't work for me. There's other ways that you can do it. So I always just think, just listen to your body, listen to your family, see what works best for them. And you don't have to follow the rules. You can chop and change them to suit your environment. I think that's the main thing, because we all have different lives. We have all different lifestyles. We all have different children who have different needs. and it's not a one size fits all. And I see so many people, as I said, like with the, I'm doing all the high intensity exercise and I'm low carb and I'm doing all the right things, and they're totally stressed. Like, just stop and listen to your body, because if you stop and listen, generally it will tell you what you need to do. And there's always, if one thing doesn't work, there's always the next thing that you can try.
Absolutely, and I love what you just said and totally agree with that. Our bodies always tell us what it needs, what we need to do. All we have to do is just really stop and listen to it. So much we don't.
Yeah, I think we can just get caught up again, like there's so much information online.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's what I've got to do. I'll give you a classic example. Muscle cramps. I get muscle cramps. What do you do for muscle cramps? Go online, magnesium. If I take magnesium, it makes my muscle cramps worse. I need calcium. I need magnesium as well. But if I don't take it with calcium, I get more muscle cramps. Now, I could just keep going, you need magnesium for muscle cramps. Keep taking magnesium for muscle cramps and not listen to my body and keep getting muscle cramps. Or I can go, okay, this isn't actually working for me. Is there something else out there? Don't beat your head up against a brick wall trying to do something that's just not working, because there are so many different options out there, and it's not one size fits all.
No, it's not, because we are all different, and our bodies are all very different, right? But our bodies are our natural healers, our natural doctors, our natural chemists. All we have to do is support it.
And I think the thing a lot of parents think out there is, oh, if I want to work on nutrition with my children, it has to be about giving them more vegetables and plants. And they don't like that, and they're fussy. And it's not about that. It can be as simple as including more protein for breakfast, regulating your blood glucose levels. If your child is having any sort of anxiety issues, focus issues, behavioral issues, I'm telling you, it may not fix it, but it will certainly take the edge off. You don't have to have them eating a million plant foods for that to happen. You just need to do things like, instead of giving them rice, you can give them some protein first and then give them the rice. That will dampen the blood glucose spike. There's heaps of hacks and tricks. I'm all about doing things the easiest way possible. Don't white knuckle it. Like 9 coffees a day down to 0, not happening. You find ways to weed that out so you don't need it anymore. You don't have to do it the hard way.
No, life is not meant to be difficult. We make it that way.
We do. We overthink things, and it can be so much easier than we think. And don't take on too much. Another thing I always say is find that one thing and do it really well. And that might be get your child to have 2 sips of water in the morning before they go to school. That might be it. Do that until it's habit, and then find the next thing. It doesn't have to be huge change. That causes a lot of stress. One little change at a time will get you in where you need to go. Because if you try and do everything, you'll end up doing nothing. It's too hard.
Because we experience, or we think that everything is too hard, when it's just
we just think everything's going to be difficult and you got to do huge big change you can make, and kids respond really quickly.
Absolutely. Can I ask you, Melanie, just one last question, talking about that one little thing,
Yeah.
whether it's for children or mums or anyone, right? If you've got someone who's feeling really overwhelmed, high anxiety, okay, which is a lot today, but is there just one nutrition that would really help the anxiety, that overwhelm?
One nutrient, definitely magnesium is always a big favorite. I think it's really easy to deplete. We don't get it. It's depleted very much in our diet, in our soil now. So magnesium is a really good one to help with the nervous system. That's the best place to start. But the thing I would say is you need to be mindful of which one you're taking. If you go to the supermarket and you buy those sugary gummies and you think you're giving, there's very little in there. Unfortunately, you get what you pay for, and you might find one that's half the price that looks like it's the same, but the type of magnesium you take makes a difference. So a lot of them are magnesium oxide. Great if you're constipated. Take heaps of magnesium oxide. It'll help you move your bowels. Might even give you diarrhea. Not going to absorb very well. It's not going to help your nervous system. Magnesium glycinate, really good for bedtime, helping you sleep. Magnesium citrate can be much better, like just a good general one. Good for muscles and things like that. So just, again, there's lots of information online. If you just Google what's the best type of magnesium, it'll tell you what types and different things. So it's getting enough. A lot of the ones off the shelf it's such a tiny dose, it's not going to do much.
Yes, and like you said, you can Google it, but even better than that, for everyone who is watching or listening to our podcast, come and connect with Melanie. Join her Facebook group. All the links are down below, or just connect, because hearing things, learning about things from someone who has lived experience, which you have, is so much better.
And also, you can waste a lot of time going around in circles trying to guess. Yeah, obviously, I'd love everyone to come and see me, and I'd love to be able to help everyone. I'm changing the world one child at a time. That's my motto. But
that's the main thing.
There's answers out there. And my social media actually did a post once on the different types of magnesium and what they're for. And it's just, yeah, again, people marketing, they come in and everyone's trying to make money. And so they all these products are out there and everyone's getting confused. But just that. And then on top of that, one kind of lifestyle thing I would recommend is something to calm your nervous system. So I have actually a wide range of things. I don't do heaps of things, but I have lots of different options in my pocket. If I'm driving from one place to another and I'm feeling stressed, I'll use a little bit of breathing. So there's box breathing, which is breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, or alternate nostril breathing, where you breathe in one side and then breathe out the other, breathe in and then breathe out. That simulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming part. I use that. Sometimes I walk on the grass and water my plants. I find that really nice. Sometimes I do meditation, because we don't always have 20 minutes to go and meditate. And sometimes when we're so stressed, we can't actually meditate. So you just find one little thing to help calm you down throughout the day. That's going to help too, more than a supplement, because it's reducing the amount that your body's burning through by not being stressed.
Thank you ever so much. I mean, it has really been a joy talking to you and very impactful. I've learned a lot, and I know hopefully for our listeners that they've learned stuff too. Like I said, reach out to Melanie, come and join a Facebook and just learn or develop ways that we can help support our bodies so we don't have to experience stress, no matter if you're a mum or not, but especially for mums.
Yeah, you can definitely build up your resilience to stress with different lifestyle and diet strategies so that those things don't stress you out quite so much. Because if you have a low resilience to stress, the stress in your life is so much greater because every little thing stresses you out, rather than having a bit more of a Teflon so you can let things go. And supporting your nervous system is key to helping your resilience to stress.
Absolutely. So very true. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It has been a real joy talking to you and to know all about, it's the simple things, but they're so impactful, especially in today's world. We don't have to live in this world in a stressful way. We can still enjoy it when we support our body's health and nutrition.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for being part of this meaningful conversation with Melanie. Her insights into the role of nutrition into managing stress reminds us of the power we hold to heal and thrive by making simple, mindful, and nourishing choices. Click on the link below and connect with Melanie if you'd like to know more. If this episode resonated with you, we would love your support. Please hit the subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. Give us a like to let us know that you found value here. And visit us at www.sacredu, that's the letter U.love, for even more resources and connections that empower your journey. Remember, your body and mind are the most valuable assets, and they deserve your care and attention. Each small step you take towards nourishing yourself and your loved ones contributes to a life of balance, health, and joy. You have the power to create a vibrant and fulfilling life, one intentional choice at a time. So until next time, stay inspired and stay connected. Have a beautiful day.